Hello, hello. Welcome to the Passion with Purpose show, a video podcast about life, leadership, and everything in between when it comes to building a life of passion and purpose. I'm your host, Steve Mezzacappa. Let's run the intro. Right, let's dive in here. So I've been actually dreaming for this one for a long time. I've been wanting to do a video podcast for a number of years. And of course, it's taken me some time, but finally happy to be taking the leap and doing it now. I published a book 2 years ago entitled Passion with Purpose, The Fire Within, Building a Life of Fulfillment, Destiny, and Impact. This podcast will definitely cover a lot of themes within that book. But even more, we're going to go deep into the ideas of passion, purpose, life fulfillment. We're going to talk about this thing called passional intelligence, a new phrase I've been coining to really go deeper on this idea of what emotional intelligence is, right? Emotional intelligence focuses on emotions, but I want to go even deeper than that. I want to get spiritual. I want to bring together how our soul and our passion is really influenced by the external world, and internally and even spiritually, right? So jumping ahead, but just kind of want to give you a taste of what's coming in the future with this video podcast. Episodes will be released weekly on Tuesdays. Really excited that you're tuning in now if you are, and I hope you continue to listen throughout the life of this show, which will continue indefinitely. To start, we're going to start with a lot of content, with just me sharing some content, things I've learned, different messages and principles from my book. But eventually we're going to invite some guests to be a part of the show as well. That's the long-term goal, is to really have a lot of guests on and interview them and really learn more about their story, whether in the relations of their leadership, influences in the world, and also how they channel their inner passion. Because a big topic, a big theme that I'm going to continually say throughout the show is how important it is to build passion, not simply follow it. But anyway, without further ado, I really do want to get into this episode, and its title is Authenticity, Setting the World on Fire with Your Passion. Not someone else's passion, your passion. So let's dive in. There's so much I wanted to uncover in this show, in this podcast. I really want it to be somewhat formal, but also informal, because I want to have fun with it, but I also want to make sure that you learn something from these videos, and there's some type of structure to guide the learning and the desired outcomes for yourself and for the content I hope to teach and put out there. So I'm really excited. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to put content together and record it. But anyway, back to authenticity. What in the world does authenticity have to do with passion and making a difference in the world? Well, to start, I want to start with a quote that I recently came across on January 1st, actually, a quote by St. Catherine of Siena. The quote is really simple. Simple to read, but difficult to put into practice. But here's the quote. Be who God meant you to be, and you will set the world on fire. There's a lot here. And I want to tie this quote to what it means to be authentic and why that has to relate to this. So, being who God meant you to be. Let's start with that part of the quote. Being who God meant you to be. How do you be who God meant you to be? That's a question I've asked myself throughout my whole life. Still ask it, if I'm being honest. And I know many others ask it throughout their entire life. What does it mean to be who God meant us to be? Well, let's look at it this way. It requires authenticity, right? And if you think about who God made me to be, it's very easy to look at it, okay, that's somewhere way off in the distance of who I'm meant to be. But what if it's simpler than that? Simple in terms of explanation, but maybe hard to put in practice. But what if being who God meant us to be means being authentically and audaciously present right now? Not someone who I'm going to be later on in the future, but authentic right now, embracing the authentic thoughts within our lives and who we are right now. So being who God meant you to be requires authenticity. I want you to realize that. Now let's go a little deeper in this. It's hard to be authentic, right? I know if I'm being honest, it's definitely a struggle for me at times. Who doesn't want to be respected, appreciated, valued, right? And especially in the age of social media and the information age, our minds are overrun with what the best thing looks like, or with FOMO, right? All these things here. So these external pressures affect authenticity, right? Social media, society, even relationships and family. How often, it's unfortunate, but some folks grow up in homes where this family member pressuring them to go be something because that's what they want for them, but not necessarily what's best for that person, right? We should ask ourselves when we're pursuing our life goals or really discerning who God made us to be, what's influencing that decision, what's influencing us as we discern who God is making us and who he wants us to be. It's really deep, it's really personal, and it's really intentional to really go on that journey. Though the barrier to really being authentic comes to internal. We self-sabotage. I do it to myself. It's really easy for it to happen, and sometimes struggling with imposter syndrome could really affect us and our ability to be truly authentic. But it's really important, and if you struggle with authenticity, it's a struggle for everyone. Here's another quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson. He famously said, "To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment." Right there. It's hard. It's hard. The world is telling us to be X, but God is telling us to be Z, or leading us to be Z. And even you might be in the middle, you might be Y. So who knows? It's very difficult, right? But let's continue here. And if we really want to go deeper of understanding why is it so hard to be authentic, I really think it comes down to fear and insecurity. Fear of rejection, fear of putting ourselves out there, fear of being vulnerable. Fear is the root to a lot of this, and we're going to address fear and authenticity in a moment. But I do want to get to the next part of this quote. Again, just to recap, the quote that we're talking about here from St. Catherine of Siena is, "Be who God meant you to be, and you will set the world on fire." So coming to the second part, setting the world on fire. What does that require? It requires passion. It requires energy. And like the title of this episode, it requires your passion. Your passion. Not someone else's, your passion. But let's talk about passion for a second. How many times have you heard the phrase, follow your passion? I've heard it my whole life. And let me tell you something. I was all about that. And I remember there was a time in college where I read an article talking about how don't follow your passion. I was like, this is a load of baloney. All I want to do in life is follow my passion. But, as I progressed through my college experience, I followed my passion. I was involved in a bunch of things, got to lead a lot of cool organizations. I ended up burning out. So I went through this whole reflective journey of re-looking at what passion is. And I wrote a book about it. It's called Passion with Purpose, the Fire Within. I'll link it later. That really redefines what passion really is. It's not something you follow, but something that you build. See, passion is this energy within you that you could utilize to meet the demands of adversity in life. I think instead we should be telling ourselves, follow a purpose and do it with passion. So when I get back here and I say setting the world on fire requires your unique passion, I want you to look at that and realize, make sure you're asking yourself the right questions. Asking yourself what's my passion might be the wrong question to start with when you're really trying to evaluate, if how are you going to change the world with passion. Again, we're going to come full circle here in a second, but I just want you to keep that idea in mind to not follow passion, but to simply build passion. And like I said, not just build someone else's passion, but your passion. So going deeper here on this idea of passion as this energy within you, I'd redefine it in my book as the soul set on fire. Now, the soul is one of three faculties of the human being. You have our spirit, our soul, and our body. Again, I go deep in this in our book, but for the sake of this show, I want to kind of keep it somewhat concise so we can really get through everything we want to get through. So we have a spirit, a soul, and a body. So looking at the soul, it has three human different faculties: our intellect, our emotion, and our will. So within our soul, that's our organ within our being where we think about things, we understand things, we feel different affections and desires, and ultimately we make decisions with those desires. So this is what it means to be passionate. It means to be audaciously intentional in our thoughts, our feelings, and our choices. That's how we interact with others and with the world. And going off of that, it's important to understand that your passion is not your purpose. Like I said, you want to follow your purpose and do it with passion. And as I just said, that your passion is how you interact with the outside world and with others through your thought life, your feelings, your emotions, and the decisions you make. That's the energy within you that's going to light up the world and make a big difference. Now, a couple other points I want to make here. Back to the authenticity part. It's tough to be authentic, right? It's tough to be truly passionate sometimes. We could fake passion, but I don't know how far that's going to get us. When it really comes to being authentic with yourself and having authentic passion, it means being present and always being self-reflective and self-aware to know how you are doing internally, understanding your thought life, your emotional life, and your volitional life constantly, and understanding what's driving different behaviors, different motives. That's what it means to be really aware. And the authenticity part comes in when you are able to recognize the internal thoughts going on and acknowledging it's unhealthy or healthy. And what you do with that will have an impact later on. And we'll just save that topic for another day. But to overcome fear in this idea of authenticity, there's a lot. There's a lot of ways to overcome fear. But to put it simply, and the one solution I like to propose to you in this video that you could take as a practical way as you move forward is trusting God. Ultimately, trusting God. When there's fear, you want to meet fear with love and trust in God. And what I mean by that is through a relationship, through faith in God, in the different struggles that you have. A lot of people always ask, like, what's my passion? What am I interested in? Where do I go in life? Sometimes we already know. Deep down, if you really think about it, we know who we are. We know where we're being led. And a lot of times, not all the time, I don't want to generalize, but a lot of times we're running from our own selves because we're afraid. We don't trust God into where he's leading us. But in terms of the unknown, we have to have trust. So if you're struggling with confidence, have confidence in God. Know that he's going to carry you through. Don't think that you need to be a superhero to get where God's leading you. Let God handle that. Let your ego subside, stay humble, and have confidence in God. If you're struggling with a vision or where you're going, instead of looking at it through your lens, look at the future, how God sees the future. And if you're struggling in your soul, let God be your companion. I think it's really important to let God in on your struggles, especially as it has to do with authenticity and truly living a vibrant and passionate life. No, you're not alone in it. You don't have to just please other people, but let God be a part of the journey with you. There's so much more to really go deep here, but I do want to just close this first episode with that kind of simple, staying pretty surface level on some things, sharing some pretty deep ideas to contemplate with. But a lot of thoughts within that, we're going to go deeper throughout this show. But if you do want to go deeper in the meantime, I would love to share with you a chapter of my book that talks about the relationship between authenticity and knowing your identity. So if you'd like to read that chapter, I'd love to give it to you as a gift. You can go to passionwithpurpose.org/authentic, or you could just check out the link in the show notes below or in the comments wherever you're digesting this material. But would love to share that chapter with you. Get your thoughts on it. Again, you go to passionwithpurpose.org/authentic, or you can check out the link in the show notes. So that's it for the first show. Hope you enjoyed it. Really appreciate you tuning in, and really hope to see you on the next one. Hope your new year is off to a great start.